A live performance. Not on Zoom. Real life presence. Otherworldliness. Welcome to episode 4 of the Mad About podcast. This is the place where we'll be discussing all things mental health, neurodiverse and creativity related. Every show starts with a piece of creative writing, normally from one of our listeners, but today it was by me. So thank you very much, me. I'm Sadie P. And my co-host Katty G and I both have lived experience of mental health issues and or neurodiverse conditions. We're both massive fans of art, music, theatre and all things creative, as well as nurturing our own creative practices. We'll be interviewing creative practitioners on every show and getting to know about their creative projects, as well as opening up about their mental health and well-being practices and looking a little bit deeper at where these things intersect. Every episode we focus on a different topic. And this week we are... Theatre! So welcome to episode 4 of the Mad About podcast.
Welcome.
I feel quite proud that we've reached the 4th episode.
Yeah, we're past halfway now for the first season, if it is hopefully just the first season.
Yeah, I know. We're into the final segment. It's not been easy, has it?
No, it's not been without its obstacles. I don't know if we'll mention that you've had COVID. Did we mention that?
Well, we mentioned it last time, but I'm still kind of recovering really with my lungs, but I feel okay.
Yeah, absolutely. Trooper.
You've had the builders going on next door.
My next door neighbours have decided that lockdown is the perfect moment to do a full house renovation. So yeah, we've had builders now since November, but they're really ramping up in enthusiasm these last couple of weeks.
So we've just had to steal this pocket of time to record.
Yeah.
So we better just kind of like do it quickly.
Yeah, we need to not sound too like stressed and like, come on, quick.
Let's just chipmunk it up and just reel through it.
And done. So yeah, it's definitely been an exercise in sort of finding my zen place anyway.
God, that must be really hard being in lockdown and having builders going on.
Yeah, the hardest part is the terrible music and the singing along, I think. I wouldn't mind if it was good tunes, but it never is.
Do you have noise-cancelling headphones?
No. Yeah. Sadly, no.
I invested in some best decision in my life.
Yeah.
It really transforms a bus journey. So
on to this week's topic.
Yeah, theatre. So what's your experience of theatre, Katty?
Well, I think I used to go quite a lot, like when I was at school. I did theatre studies and really enjoyed that, and they took us to lots of plays. And then at university in London, if you're a student, you could get tickets to all like the big shows for £5. So that was really good, and I took advantage of that quite a lot. But ever since I stopped being a student, it became more or less prohibitively expensive. So I hardly ever go now unless I have like a friend that's in something or whatever. But yeah, it's a bit of a distant memory now. I haven't been for such a long time, and I can't even imagine that sensation of all sitting in a shared space close together, having some kind of shared experience like that. Can't wait for it to be back.
It's all changed now, isn't it, with lockdown? But
yeah. What's your experience with theatre?
Yeah, I think probably the opposite to you. Like, I never really was into any theatre when I was growing up. It just wasn't a thing that people did at school. It wasn't an option.
Oh, yeah.
I guess. Like there was a drama class.
Yeah.
And I was always really into it. I was always really like, I used to kind of audition for plays and stuff, but I would never get a role. I was always very quiet and very shy, and never was into theatre. I would never see myself as somebody who would perform or get up in front of people. But actually, I started to, I never went to the theatre as a child. Went a couple of times with the school. It wasn't a thing that I did. It wasn't in my peripheries. It wasn't anything that anybody else did. But I started to get into improv in my late 20s, just from my art career and meeting an improv teacher on a course. And I started going along to her sessions, and I really loved it. Just really, I really got so much out of it.
Yeah.
It's like a meditation. And then I got into clowning and falling. I do a bit of performance stuff now, but I wouldn't call myself a performer. It's so terrifying.
Yeah. but you are a performer.
I do that sometimes, but it's not like I could just jump up at any moment and just start doing that. The preparation involved in that, and kind of needing to be absolutely stable in everything else in my life to be able to then do that. It's not something you can it's not something that I can do easily.
I just started reading this book, actually. It's called The Art of Improvising as a Way of Life by Stephen Nachmanovich. And it's all about, like, sort of more like the philosophical things of improvisation that you're talking about. I've only just started reading it. But sort of how preparation, as you're just saying, like, you have to be prepared and stable in yourself. You're basically paraphrasing exactly what he was saying.
Right.
And I just was literally reading that last night. It's really weird. But how if you've done all the preparation, then all you have to do is be in the present moment and then trust that it will happen. And it's a conversation, a sort of listening to one another. It's not just about you. It's the interaction where the magic is made.
There's like someone was explaining it like there's like, you have to kind of separate your focus. There's the focus on yourself, and then you have to like split that with everything and everybody in the room too. But I guess like that's true for fooling and clowning. But
I don't know very much about fooling. Couldn't you? And clowning. What does it mean?
Oh, I don't think I'm qualified to answer this.
Well, I mean, as you understand it, what does fooling mean for you?
Well, I think I kind of see it as like an improvisational sort of style, and perhaps something that's more of a therapeutic process. It can be something that people go to see falling shows, especially in Bristol. But
what does that look like? Is there a certain way that people move their body, or what are people doing when you're watching?
Well, it's basically somebody gets up on the stage by themselves and doesn't have any plan. And that's the idea, was to not have a plan. Because as soon as you make a plan and then you do the plan, it's not improvised anymore. You have to get rid of it and be completely acting on the impulses that come. So that it can be things like a feeling that you have and then you notice it and then you turn it up, or it can be something that somebody says and then you notice it and you add to it.
So you're reacting to the stimulus inside you and around you. In the moment.
Or they might put... there's normally somebody directing it and they might put some music on.
Oh, I see.
So it can be anything, and it also can be, it's not necessarily funny, it can be really awkward or sad. So a lot of people probably would find it a bit weird, but that's the kind of theatre that I like.
Sounds really interesting. Like, it's the kind of theatre I like as well. Like, there's sort of lots of people, when you talk about theatre, it brings to mind sort of West End shows and musicals, and there's nothing wrong with those. There's a sort of time and a place for them. But I think like what's really more interesting is like that sort of intimate, really raw, something actually being created that's unplanned, that's completely ephemeral, that lasts just for that moment and then is gone and it's just shared with the performers and the audience. Like, that's the exciting part of theatre for me, not the huge spectacle. And I mean, although it's cool too.
Yeah, me too. Yeah, I mean, I find that really exciting. I think like that type of theatre normally happens in quite intimate venues as well, and perhaps with people who know each other in the same communities as well. So there's like that kind of connection that goes on as well.
Okay, so how does clowning differ from fooling then?
I think clowning's about the nose. I don't know. I see fooling as like one person is on stage and it's about that one person. Okay. But I see clowning as perhaps a little bit more sort of
an ensemble thing.
It's ensemble, yes. But then again, in fooling, it can be ensemble as well. So that's not like a straight...
Yeah, that's not a rule.
And maybe clowning doesn't often go to the dark places too. Clowning is often about trying to get people to like you. Okay. Whereas fooling is just like, it is what it is. And whether or not people like you isn't your business.
Okay. Yeah,
it's just about playing what's in the room. Yeah, that's kind of something I've heard.
Okay. Well, that sounds so... I'd love to go to a fooling performance. I never even knew that it existed until I met you.
Wow, yeah. Oh, I mean, I've never been to one until I moved to Bristol. I think I've only been to a couple as well. But yeah, I'd love to go to more.
And with the clowning, are there different types of clowning? I seem to remember there's like different names for like different, I don't know, styles of clowning.
There are, yeah. There's well, I mean, the only type of clowning that I've studied is like through Holly Stoppett, who's like a drama therapist in Bristol, and her style of clowning is perhaps a little bit different, perhaps a bit more sort of therapy based.
Therapeutic, wow.
But I've heard of dark clown and bouffon, which is like where you distort your body and make yourself look different by like padding out different areas of your body. And there are different types. I guess it depends on the teacher.
Yeah. And how do you feel when you're like performing these things? Is it like scary or?
Well, I don't know. I haven't really. I wouldn't say that I'm a performer. I practice a lot.
Okay.
But I guess for me with lockdown, I did do a little bit of performance with a clown friend of mine. We did some street performances.
Oh yeah. Is this hazmat and COVID?
Yeah, I mean that was terrifying.
You were scared to do that, you mean?
Yeah, it was really scary. But I mean, it was fun and it was also scary. But it was different because it wasn't just us going out into the street and improvising. It was like a whole rehearsed kind of piece, and I've never done any of that actually before. I've only ever really improvised and just messed around in the moment.
And was it interactive? With COVID, you can't physically interact with anybody.
Yeah, it was a bit interactive at the end because we were asking people, what is life AC after COVID? And getting people to kind of talk about what they want to see after COVID. And then that fed into a big piece of collaborative artwork that me and Jen, aka Hazmat, put together, and we got people to draw pictures and write things, and we put it all together.
Imagining life AC after COVID.
Yeah,
that's so cool.
So there's all things like back to school, and they want proper theatre.
Yeah. I think like that kind of theatre apparently is going to be more common sort of in the AC after COVID world, that, you know, it's going to take a while for theatres to be filling up with people again and breaking even again. So they're sort of decentralising movement from London and from theatres and out into streets, and more sort of, I don't know, like apparently in the 70s, that was what happened with the Battersea Arts Centre. Is like when all of the normal places that theatre happened were unavailable to people, then they took their sort of more fringe, weird theatre experimental things into other spaces, and that's where like the Battersea Arts Centre came from and places like that. So.
What happened in the 70s to make all these theatre venues unavailable?
I don't know. But it was sort of a time of a big sort of imaginative theatre boom, as I understand it. I don't know very much about it, to be fair.
So what was the last theatrical show that you went to?
This is a good question, and actually I should have probably prepared my answer to this before we started recording, because it's actually been so long that I possibly couldn't tell you.
I'm just trying to think for me as well, actually. Oh yeah, I remember. It was my birthday just before lockdown, and we went to see Women Who Wank by Joanne Tremarco. She's an amazing fool.
Oh yeah,
or one woman show all about vaginas and wanking.
Wow, an improvised show.
Yeah,
wow.
Well, it's fooling. So
yeah.
I think she had like different elements that she would she had like certain characters that she would revisit, but it was every show was different because it was fooling,
wow.
improvised.
And that was last year?
Yes, that would have been like this time last year. That's the last show.
Gosh. Yeah. It's a bit bad that I don't have a quick answer to that, but I've been living very rurally for like the last 5 years, so it's just not something that's been normal. My closest theatre was the Milton Keynes Theatre, and let me tell you, that doesn't have a lot of stuff on that you want to pay lots of money to go and see.
I think it's at the times in my life where I've moved out of Bristol and I've been a bit more rural, I've really realised like how culturally rich Bristol is, like in terms of events going on and really amazing theatre and really interesting events and interesting weird little venues.
Yeah.
Like Bristol's great for
Yeah.
that.
Yeah, it's got a very vibrant like arts and theatre scene. What was maybe rather than what was the last piece of theatre we went to see, what was the like most memorable piece of theatre you've been to see?
I'm going to turn that question back onto you because I've just been banging on for a bit.
Oh gosh, probably the most memorable piece of theatre I ever went to see was it was the Central St Martin's in London, their graduation show. So it was like a collaborative effort of all the graduates of the Central St Martin's like theatre programme. And I think probably when you're at that like age, early 20s at Arts Uni in London, you probably want to go as weird as possible, and they did. And I was young-ish, like 18 or 19 maybe. So, and I hadn't been to the kind of theatre where it's not in a theatre and they march you around and make you move and shout at you and, all this kind of stuff. But the most memorable thing about it was that when we first entered into the foyer at the beginning, there was a girl sat on a plinth in the foyer, and she was all dressed in white and all of her skin was painted white. And on her head, she had dough, like bread dough, but completely covering her head, so you couldn't see. I don't know how she was breathing, but so you couldn't see anything except this white ball of dough. And with her hands, she was sort of making these facial expressions in the dough, like a smile, and it would sort of be there for a moment before it would sag down or whatever. And then we went off into the theatre for our show and got marched around and shouted at and all of this weird stuff. And then we came back out, and while we'd been in the show, she'd gone off and baked the dough into face bread that we all then had to eat, knowing it had been, all over her face and stuff. So it was very sort of, interactive, I guess, and memorable.
Wow, that sounds amazing. Really like visceral, like with the dough.
Yeah.
So do you see yourself getting back into your theatre?
Into going to the theatre?
Into practicing?
Oh, practicing. Well, I mean, I very much I was quite into acting and, generally like theatre, and I didn't mind performing or being on a stage until I met that woman that believed me. But then when that happened, I very much stopped. So I think that things like contact improv and improvisation and stuff, I really like resist the idea of it. So I think it's probably exactly the thing that I need to practice, if you know what I mean. Like, I think when something scares you, it's probably a quite good, unless it's obviously something that will kill you. It can be quite a good indicator of it being like a direction that would lead to your self-growth or whatever. So I would quite like to try some of that out. Yeah. I quite often resist those kinds of like earnest practices, like on the yoga teacher trainings when you have to do like eye gazing and stuff. I used to have such resistance to that kind of thing, but it's because it's exactly the thing that I needed to do. So,
oh God, it's hard, isn't it? Yeah, I hate those things. Everybody hates them, but don't people like fall in love after they've done like an eye gazing?
Yeah, they really do. I think I fell in love with a little bit with everyone that I eye gazed with.
I think a lot of theatre training it's like half sitting in meditation, doing a check-in, gazing with people, really connecting with people. Perhaps it's even more than half, and then it's maybe like 1/4 actually doing something in front of somebody.
Yeah.
There's so much preparation that goes into it.
Yeah, it would be cool to actually do some. I remember I had a friend that I went to school with who was really shy. And when he moved to London, he signed up for an improv course. And I was like, God, good on you. Like, of all the scary things to do as a really chronically shy person. And he said it just like completely transformed his confidence level, that like simple thing of just going with the same group of people every week and just learning how to do improvisation and learning. I think a lot of those kinds of things is just learning how to be silly in front of people and not mind, you know.
Yeah, I remember it having a massive transformational effect on me as well in my late 20s. It was kind of like this, I don't know, it kind of like instilled this kind of confidence to be able to kind of trust that I'll know what to do.
Yeah, right.
When I need to know it, rather than like needing to plan meticulously everything before I do it and stress myself out. It's just like I can get rid of all plans and just turn up, and I will be able to just know what to do.
Yeah.
But then I actually, sorry.
I'm saying you're quoting the book again. without having read it. It's really weird.
Did I secretly write it?
Are you Stephen Nachmanovich?
I'm a dark horse, Katty, a dark horse. I think I definitely, then I kind of like experienced like a knock of the confidence and then had about 4 years without doing anything, and kind of went to like another, I think I moved cities, and then I signed up for an improv class and just was completely stuck and traumatized from moving cities and just like trying to force myself to kind of jump in and be this amazing person. But actually like this, you know, there's the basics need to be covered first. Like you need to be feeling safe and secure and, you know, the basics. I think that kind of stuff is like you have to build up to it.
Yeah, right.
So what do you think the theatres are going to look like after lockdown? Do you think that we'll be able to start going again from June or something?
No, I mean, I think it might take a while, especially for the smaller theatres to get up and running again. You know, the ones without lots of financial support behind them. I imagine that there will just be a lot more theatre happening in places that aren't theatres, I hope. I'm a big fan of theatre, not in theatres anyway, so that would be a good development, especially if it makes it more accessible price-wise for people.
So people can just go and see theatre in the streets, and maybe more people will be developing street acts.
Yeah.
That sounds cool.
I imagine that it might go that way. It would be cool if it did. What about you? What do you reckon?
Well, I was wondering if the theatre venues might become like the buses are now, with like, you know, some of the seats kind of like with tape on, and then just have people like dotted around, not all close together. Yeah,
but in order to, that means that they're going to have to charge even more for the theatre tickets than they already do.
Oh, blimey.
Should we pay a visit to our pal?
Yeah, the means well. Let's see how he's doing.
The means well.
Hi, means well. How's your appetite today? Oh, he's hungry today. Okay, he's hungry. We better have something juicy for him.
Yeah, I do. I've got something for you this
have
time.
you?
Well, yeah. So you might like it, you might not. Let's see. Yeah. So mine comes from just general frustrations with having a condition, an illness that's invisible, and the response of people when I tell them is, "Oh, you don't look disabled," and it's really difficult. And I know they say it as a compliment, but yeah, I'm gonna shove it down. I'm just gonna go for it.
That's definitely some unhelpful advice that can go down there.
Are you ready? Well, you don't look disabled.
Ooh, I heard it land.
Okay. Yeah, me too. I'm gonna see what the well has to say. Gonna bring it out. Oh yeah. Oh, buckets. Here we go. Here's the bucket.
Well done.
Let's see what that says. Oh well. You can't say that.
What did you say?
It's just a load of expletives. I can't repeat this.
Wow.
It's just swearing. I know it's frustrating, and yeah, there's a lot of ignorance about neurodiversity and about mental health, but you know, this is the means well section. They mean well. So
yeah.
you know, can we try it? Can we try this again and just hold it in your mind well that, you know, what we're trying to do here, let's work together. We're trying to educate people. We're not trying to shout at them and swear at them, okay?
No, that doesn't help anything.
Okay. All right, let's try that again. Let's be nice, okay?
Okay. I think he's ready to give us a fresh piece of advice.
Okay, I'm going to put this bucket down.
Have your bucket back, you grumpy old thing.
No, behave. Well...
Could be children listening.
All right. Should we try this again?
Yeah.
Do you want to join me this time, Katty, in shouting it?
Okay, let's shout it down again.
Okay. 1, 2, 3. You don't look disabled!
Down it goes. Okay, let's see if he's got something a little bit more polite for us to read this time.
Yeah, remember what I said, well?
On your best behaviour.
Yeah, best behaviour this time, okay?
Oh, it's coming back up again. I can see by Sadie's
mime.
Yeah,
I can see it. Yeah, I can see it. Okay, I'm going to grab it.
Okay, fingers crossed.
So the means well says, invisible disabilities aren't visible, hence why they are invisible. Oh, that's a little bit facetious, isn't it?
He's got some sass on him today.
Well done, well done for not swearing anyway.
Yeah, and I mean, you point out the obvious, which sometimes does need to be done.
Yeah, I mean, if it was visible, do you think it might be easier?
It happens with mental health things all the time, doesn't it? That people say, "Oh, you don't look like you've got whatever you do actually have," just because, you know, people also develop really sophisticated ways of masking these things, you know, and how we can learn to fit into society. So we know how to hide the things that aren't acceptable, in inverted commas.
Yeah, in a way, I think it makes it harder because you can go for years without getting the support that you need, because on the outside you appear to be functional and normal, but nobody can see the times behind closed doors when you're kind of incapacitated by intense emotions and not able to function. And you can just function just for that little bit that's visible to other people.
Yeah.
And I find it really invalidating because it doesn't recognise that struggle.
Yeah, I totally agree. That was well put.
I think in a way, especially in the case of autism, that masking from a young age, because we've learned the certain things that don't fit in and what we need to try to do to fit in, and that comes at a great expense to us because it takes a lot of energy to go through life being such an actress.
Yeah, right.
And to be yourself, we've learned would mean being shunned, or not being accepted. So the masking happens, and autistic people get very burnt out very quickly from having to do that, having to not look disabled.
Yeah. So I suppose it's also important for you to have like strategies for how to replenish your energy, because it must take so much energy.
Yeah, I think it's quite difficult with the lack of understanding about it, and people often think that it's rudeness, when actually it's a self-preservation mechanism to kind of allow that space and to really limit the amount of people that I talk to and interact with. But it's an invisible disability.
It is, and it's invisible because it was a survival tactic, basically. You have to make it invisible. And
then also with mental health issues as well, it's a similar thing. And if you're somebody who's just about holding it together on the outside, and on the inside you're not, it's quite difficult to, if people don't really realise how bad it is for you.
Yeah, I think it's one of the causes of depression as well, is the feeling that you have to always present a sunny face to everyone. So you repress all of the stuff that isn't smiley happiness, and I think actually that feeling that you have to always be happy and presenting everyone with your best side can cause some really deep sort of fissures within yourself, because you have to separate off all of the emotions that aren't deemed as positive by everybody else.
That's really, I can relate to that as well, and that's really a really similar thing, isn't it? It's like putting on a mask to be acceptable to society, and I'm kind of done with that, really.
Wearing masks is super exhausting. It's like they say it's one of the reasons why people become introverted, is because they need to have time when they're not wearing the mask, because it's not using so much energy.
So here we go. So here we are, unmasking.
Masks off, but not
in front of your very eyes.
Well, Means Well got us onto some interesting topics today. Thank you, Means Well.
Yeah, thank you, Well. How was that for you? Well?
He still sounds a bit angry, but...
Okay. We'll see you next time.
Bye, Well.
So now, welcoming Jen Davis onto the Mad About podcast. Hi, Jen.
Hello. Hello, Sadie. Lovely day. Lovely to see your face.
Yeah, lovely to see you as well. Thanks for agreeing to come on and be interviewed.
Thanks for asking me.
So, just a bit about Jen. Jen is a performance artist, a queer clown, a playful fool, and a co-creation enthusiast. And really exciting to hear a little bit more about your creative practice. Especially during lockdown, things must be a little bit different to how they were before. Do you want to talk a little bit more about your creative practice?
It's quite different. I was doing a lot more work with other people before lockdown. I guess I'm living a very like solitary kind of life, which is obviously limiting in some ways. So I'm kind of adapting to that. And I feel like theatre and clown is like the only kind of art that I can't really do on my own. So I'm not really doing it at the moment. I mean, I am a little bit online and stuff, but I think in terms of my main practice, I'm doing more, because I studied fine art years ago and I'm doing more sort of art theory at the moment, more thinky based stuff. But yeah, I'm really missing playing with people.
So can you talk a little bit more about the styles of theatre that you practice and perhaps how you got into all this silliness?
Yeah, I think it was about 4 years ago or something. I was initially really interested in clown because I had a friend who told me about protest clowns, and I had a really, I think I'd just thought of clowns as a bit of I thought about them in a way like maybe a bit cliche, like big shoes and juggling and stuff. And my friend told me about going to protests and like going to like anti-fascist marches where like you have like the fascists and anti-fascists and police and everybody is expecting a fight, right? And the clowns just go there and just subvert everything. And they were like loving the fascists. And the fascists didn't know what to do. Just complete bafflement. And like the police were saying things like, clear the road. So they were sweeping the road and cleaning the police cars and stuff. And I just thought that was just so exciting to me. It's just completely like challenging all of like the expectations of this demo. And I was just like, wow, that's so exciting. So yeah, and I had a look for courses in Bristol. I did my first one actually with Deborah Antoinette, who is brilliant. And then I was just hooked. So from that, I heard about Holly Stoppett, who does like therapeutic clown. And like that opened up a whole thing for me, because previously to that, I didn't really, well, like I said, like, yeah, the more clown I did, the more I realized like how, like, just how amazing it is and how many different elements there are to it, and like how it can really be therapeutic, and like I could just really be myself in clown. I feel most free in it, and yeah. So yeah, that's been amazing. I've done loads of stuff with Holly. She is brilliant. And from that group, like there's a massive community of people who have done Holly's work, and from there, well, obviously, like we started the clown playgroup.
Yeah, that's
together.
how we know each other. Yeah.
So yeah, we got. I think we did it amazingly well. We got together with a bunch of people for a week, for about a year, every week, and just played together. And yeah, that was amazing to just.
It was so much fun. Yeah.
Yeah, just playing for the sake of playing, and it was really beautiful. I mean, other things came out of that as well. I think a bunch of us ended up sort of collaborating and doing other shows and stuff, but the main focus of it was just to play, and I love that.
Yeah, I really loved it as well. Like a space to just kind of carry it on, really.
Yeah.
So you mentioned before about how getting into clowning really changed your life. Would you be okay to talk a little bit more about that?
Yeah, sure. So yeah, clown. I think finding clown communities, and also queer communities, and also crossovers between the two, I think have like really helped me to just I feel a lot of acceptance in these communities. And so that's just really, really helped me to be myself. And I've done some fooling with Holly as well, where we sort of play with all these internal voices that live inside of us. I mean, that as well has been massively transformative. Like, there's like parts of myself that I guess I've always known existed, but I can kind of, now I can really notice when they're like present. So for example, like my inner critic is massive. And with the fooling, it's like I can play with it in a really playful way. It can be so mean to me. And he's really mean. But I can, with the fooling, like I can, like my critic is just ridiculous. When I play it out in fooling, it says some outrageous things. And it is just completely absurd. And it's like this voice that is just like pummeling my brain. You know, and it I think it has done for a lot of my life. But with the fooling, like I can, yeah, like I say, I can really notice it. It's still there. Like I don't know if it will ever go away, but the fooling is like, yeah, help me like personify it and notice it and also have a dialogue with it, you know, and bring in some other kind of parts of myself, like compassion and like work through it in that way.
I think it's so therapeutic to get the critic in the spotlight, and yeah, perhaps there's like something in it about like the shared experience as well, and with it not being just your thing in your head now. Like, is there an element of like the shared element of it that's kind of helpful?
Yeah, definitely. I mean, community is so important for healing. I think it's really hard to kind of heal in a solo way. And I mean, I've just seen from fooling shows and from what other people say, and yeah, it's sort of archetypal. Like a lot of us experience these different kinds of archetypes or masks. Yeah, and it does make us feel less alone, you know. Yeah, for sure. I think that's a big part of Holly's work as well. Is, you know, it's the community around it as well.
I wondered if perhaps, I mean, I don't know if we covered a little bit of this already, but since this is a show about mental health and neurodiversity and creativity, I wondered if perhaps you saw yourself as someone who has struggled with these issues at any points in your life, and if you'd be happy to talk a bit more about your well-being journey.
Yeah, I mean, I've struggled with my mental health. It's hard for me to explain how, really. Or, yeah, I mean, I think everybody struggles with their mental health in some way, at some point in their lives. And it was. I think I've always used creativity as like a process. Like I studied fine art years ago, and yeah, a big part of it, I think, is just like processing my emotions. So I've always used art to process my emotions, but it was around the time when I started to get into clown that I really started to like have much more awareness and sort of practices and language around like dealing with my mental health. I just got totally hooked on all kinds of therapeutic practices once I discovered clown, basically. Because Holly's pedagogy as well, she brings in lots of things like mindfulness and non-violent communication, and you know, there's so many elements to it. But But yeah, around that time I started doing co-counselling as well when I started getting into clown, which has been really amazing as well. Some of it's quite foolish, actually, in the way that I can sort of have dialogue with different parts of myself, or sort of play out things that are sort of troubling me in some way. But that's co-counselling is really amazing as well, because it's like healing in community. It's peer-to-peer reciprocal counselling. So I've never done like traditional kind of therapy, partly because it's really expensive, I think, and partly because I have a distrust of authority. And I've also heard lots of stories. I'm really not anti-therapy, and I would be up for it, I think, at the right time if I found the right therapist. At the moment, I think I have things that are working for me. But yeah, I'm interested in the idea of doing more, like going to a therapist. But at the moment, like, I am really into co-counselling. And yeah, and I think a big part of that is like having the community, and it's peer-to-peer, so it's non-hierarchical. I'm not going to an expert who's sorting me out or whatever. It's like, it gives me the power to like, to know that I can do it well myself with the support of others. But I think there's something really empowering about doing it in a sort of non-hierarchical way, and having that community, like a massive pool of people that I can call on at any point. And it's like this cyclical kind of thing, you know. It's a constant feedback of like going through my own process, but also supporting others with their process, and you know, that's really valuable as well. And it's sort of, and also hearing other people's struggles. You know, I think that really builds like empathy and compassion, and as well, I think, you know, whether there's crossovers with the fooling, like seeing that we're all going through all of, you know, we all have these things that we struggle with, you know, and we see that in the fooling and the co-counselling as well, you know. So I think both of those things are really important to me.
Yeah, that's really interesting. I think the co-counselling is definitely a really interesting concept. It's not one that I've explored that much, but yeah, having that element of community sounds really helpful. So about your creative practice, it sounds so linked in with your well-being and your mental health recovery. Is that the right word to use? It's more of a journey, really. But you have also done your performance art for work as well. I'm just wondering about the crossover here, and do you see it as your work or practice, or can it be both?
Yeah, I think it could totally be both, and it's only fairly recently that I've started talking about like artistic work as my work. I think I really had like a sort of analogy to calling it work for quite a while because of my associations with work, and I've often seen work as like something that like I have to do that I don't really want to do, but you know, I need to make some money, because I don't do my artistic work as a full-time job. Like I sometimes make money from it, but it's not something I've really pushed for. But that's like another story, basically. Like my whole process with getting paid, like that is like maybe another podcast or something. I don't know.
So yeah, about the whole money aspect of it, like I've certainly struggled as well with that, and I'm wondering if perhaps the same for you, if that might have something to do with coming from a particular background. I come from a working class background. Being an artist wasn't an option, wasn't something that people did. Can you relate to that at all?
Yeah, I think that's like had a massive impact. Although like my family, really working class, and they, my mum was really supportive. They were both really supportive of me going to art college and going to art uni. But I didn't really have any models in my family that that was an option. It was, even though I did that and my family were really happy for me to do that. Like I was saying, it still took me so long to come out as an artist, even though I've always done it. Because and it's really, I think I've compartmentalized it. It's like, but that's something that I love, and I'm not allowed to do something that I love for money because there's no model for it in my world. Or at least that's how it's felt growing up. It's like work is something that you have to do that you hate.
Yeah, definitely. I can relate to that. I think it's really important, isn't it? Like that, seeing people like us doing the things that we want to be doing is really important. But I think there are kind of really inspirational artists out there who are kind of working class and they're making it really big. And I've always felt really inspired by people like Tracy Emin and Damien Hirst. I mean, people might not like their art, but they've come from nothing and they've grafted, and I really admire that. Is there any artist that you admire, a performance or visual artist? Or
there's someone a drag artist who I really admire, called Miss Hernia. And she's really working class. She was brought up at the Southend-on-Sea, and she's this really grotesque sort of drag artist, and she wears this sort of warty suit. And she was born out of the fatberg that there was this underneath Whitehall there was this they found this mile long lump of fat, basically, that was just all this grossness from sewers and shit, tampons and just gross stuff. So the idea is that Miss Hernia is born out of the fatberg, and she's
this fatberg.
Yeah, I think it was on the news or something. But and so she really sort of plays with sort of human, I guess, the archetype of shame and human shame. And I think, that's amazing. And I just love the, how bold she is. She's just she is really herself. That's what I see in her.
Yeah, I'm going to have to check her out, or we'll have to put a link on the Facebook page or something.
Yeah, she's got a song called Discharge Sandwich. Yeah.
I'm really into the grotesque and the that kind of area.
Oh, me too, yeah.
Do you do a bit of bouffon clowning as well, don't you?
I don't know if I'd call it that, but I mean, other people might. But I'm definitely into the grotesque and the absurd, and it does feel really freeing for me to play those parts of myself. I mean, with all of this, it's really just about letting go of shame, because if it's hidden, then it just gets bigger. It's a silencer.
Yeah, definitely.
I do. I feel like I went through a phase of doing. It was more sort of performance art than clown, where I was sort of getting really into the grotesque. And again, I think it comes down to this real question of is it sort of therapy or not, and where is the boundary of what I process for myself and what I show to the world.
I guess a lot of people don't see the whole process that goes on behind the scenes. A lot of people only see the final thing, and a lot of practicing artists are still artists, even if you're not doing a show.
Yeah, totally. I mean, everyone's an artist. I did a lovely workshop once with Tammy Reynolds, who's sometimes called Midget Bardot. And she got us all she was like, right, now say to the camera 3 times, I am an artist. I'd say, yeah, do that in the mirror, see how it feels.
So I really struggle with that because the way I was brought up, I would say artist, and I am an artist is different to I am an artist. You know, so even me saying it with a T,
I'm an artist.
It's me like going, well, who am I? Like, am I trying to be someone else? Yeah, just like trying to talk better.
We need to reclaim that. Oh, another really good recommendation. There's the Working Class Artist Database. There's a website. They're also on Instagram, and they have like loads of resources. And I think basically anyone who wants to be on the database can become a part of it as well. You just have to like get in touch with them, and they'll put your stuff up on their website. That's really good, and they post loads of opportunities and stuff on Instagram as well. Working Class Database. Working Class Artist Database. Yeah, it's great.
Could check that out. I'll have to put some links up to that as well. So I wondered if perhaps you could talk a bit about the pandemic and how that's affected you, because I know that that's completely kind of changed the way that you relate to your practice. It's been quite difficult. Are there any kind of adaptations and sort of management techniques for your mental health, perhaps, that you've formed that you'd be happy to talk about?
Yeah, sure. Well, lists are helpful. I mean, like I said earlier, I think my life has become a to-do list. Because, like, I don't have any outside structure, basically, so I'm really trying to, like, make my own. It's become quite admin heavy though. I'm not enjoying it so much. But it has been helpful for me to like not just kind of get lost in the days. I mean, it's hard like I have been sort of adapting what I do to I've been doing things that I can do just on my own, and I don't really feel like I can do clown on my own. So I feel like it's been a bit sad really. I've been really kind of mourning that part of my identity a bit because I haven't really been doing it, and like I say, I feel like my life is a bit of a to-do list, and I just really want more play and creativity and joy and being with people, and we all do, you know. I know everybody is dealing with that. So I have like this online group of fools. We sort of started meeting before the pandemic in real life and sort of continued on and off. So that's been a really lovely sort of anchor point, and a bit of play that I can do each week. And do the co-counselling every week as well. Both of those have kind of been keeping me well, I guess. Like the co-counselling's been a real lifeline.
Yeah, for sure. So we're coming to the end of the interview now. Thanks so much for sharing all of some of your story. I've got a couple of questions that I ask everybody. So how about this one? If you could travel back in time to give your younger self a piece of advice, what would that be?
Listen to your gut, not your art teachers.
Lastly, do you have a recommendation for a film, a book, podcast, program, course, or anything that has helped you in the past, or something that you're looking forward to that you could share?
So there is, on the topic of co-counselling, if anyone is interested, there is a training coming up. If you look on there's the cocounselling.org.uk website. It should be up there in the courses section. I'd say, if anyone's interested, check it out. And it's really reasonable in terms of price. And like, I think it's like no one's turned away for lack of funds. It's sliding scale, pay what you can kind of thing. So
cool. We'll have to put a link up as well. Well, thanks so much for letting me interview you. It's been really fun.
Yeah, thanks for asking me. Thanks for having me.
To the Mad About podcast. In today's episode, we've been talking about theatre. We got to know Bristol-based queer clown and fool Jen Davis, and we paid a visit to the Means Well, who was particularly upset today about a piece of unhelpful advice.
We'll be sharing links to everything we talked about to our Facebook page. Just search Mad About Podcast.
In our next episode, we are totally listening.